Okay, let's dive in. We've got this great set of sources you brought, all focusing on essential English idioms.
Yeah.
And this isn't just, a vocabulary list. It feels more like a window into how people really talk, going beyond just the dictionary words.
Exactly. And while for anyone learning English or even just wanting to sound a bit more natural, getting these idioms it's pretty key.
Right.
They're just everywhere in daily conversation. Knowing them is like a shortcut. Helps you understand better, sound more fluent. It's about catching that hidden layer of meaning sometimes.
That makes sense. Yeah, if you miss the idiom, you could miss the whole point, couldn't you? Like hearing a joke without the punchline.
Precisely.
So our mission today is to look at these sources, pull out some really useful idioms, figure out what they actually mean in context, and maybe touch on why we use these sort of colorful phrases.
Yeah.
Ready to get the ball rolling.
Absolutely. And it's interesting when you look through these, how the imagery in idioms paints such a clear picture, even if the literal meaning is, well, totally different. Like, take starting a conversation, especially when things feel a little stiff. The sources point to break the ice.
Yeah, break the ice. We use it all the time. My read from the source is it's for starting a chat, right? Especially if people don't know each other and it's a bit quiet or awkward.
That's it exactly. It tackles that initial awkwardness. The example they give is pretty clear.
Yeah.
I told a joke at the party to break the ice. So the joke was the tool, to get people talking, relax things.
Got it. So starting and easing the tension. Okay. Now, sticking with getting things started or being accurate, the sources mention hit the nail on the head. How's that one used?
Well, that one means you've described something absolutely perfectly, or you've identified the main point, the real issue, with total accuracy. It's like saying, that's exactly it.
So if someone says something really insightful in a meeting, maybe.
Yes, absolutely. That's a perfect scenario. The example was, you hit the nail on the head with your idea in the meeting. It means the idea wasn't just okay, it was spot on. Nailed it.
Nice. And you actually said get the ball rolling just a minute ago. The sources list that too. Feels a bit different from break the ice, though.
It is, yeah. Get the ball rolling is more about starting a process or a task, like kicking off a project or starting the agenda in a meeting. It's less about social awkwardness, more about initiating action. Forward movement.
Okay, right. Like the example, let's get the ball rolling on our new campaign. It's the signal to start the work. So maybe break the ice for social starts, get the ball rolling for task starts. Is that a fair way to think about it?
Generally, yes. That works, though I suppose you could sometimes, break the ice in order to get the ball rolling, like in a first team meeting.
Ah, true. Good point. Okay, let's shift a bit. What about situations where people are sharing the same experience, maybe a tough one? What do the sources say there?
They highlight in the same boat. Pretty straightforward, this one. It just means people are dealing with the same difficult situation, shared circumstances.
Right. Sounds like something you'd say for solidarity.
Yeah.
Or complaining together. We're all in the same boat during exam season. Everyone's stressed, pulling late nights.
Exactly that. It's a way of saying, hey, we're in this together. Now here's a fun one for unexpected arrivals. Speak of the devil.
Oh, I like this one. The image is great. It's when the person you were literally just talking about suddenly appears, right?
Yep. Usually said with a bit of surprise, maybe a chuckle. It's that sort of slightly coincidental feeling when someone just pops up right after you mention their name. The example captures it perfectly. Speak of the devil, there's Sarah now. Like she materialized on cue.
Totally. Okay, let's get into some idioms around work and study. The sources list burning the midnight oil.
This one paints a picture, doesn't it? It means staying up really late, usually working or studying hard, often because there's a deadline. The oil bit refers back to, oil lamps before electricity.
Right. So working late into the night, probably pretty intensely. I've been burning the midnight oil to finish this report. We've all done that.
Yeah. Haven't we just? And sometimes, after all that hard work, maybe the task itself turns out to be really simple. For that, the sources give us a piece of cake.
Yeah. Something that's just easy, very little effort needed.
Exactly. The exam was a piece of cake. It was way easier than expected.
Okay. But what if your efforts are totally off or you accuse the wrong person?
Then you might be barking up the wrong tree. Another great image. Think of a dog, barking like crazy at a tree because it thinks a squirrel's up there.
But the squirrel's actually in the next tree or not even there.
Exactly. So it means you're pursuing the wrong idea or blaming the wrong person, looking in the wrong place completely.
Makes sense. If you think I broke the window, you're barking with the wrong tree. Basically, it wasn't me. Look elsewhere.
Precisely. It's a firm denial, redirecting the focus.
It's amazing how vivid these images are. Okay, let's switch gears to feelings in relationships, that sort of nervous, fluttery feeling.
The sources capture that perfectly with butterflies in your stomach. It's that physical sensation of nervousness or excitement. Could be before a presentation, a first date. Sometimes good nerves, sometimes just anxiety.
I had butterflies in my stomach before my presentation. Yeah, you can almost feel it, that internal flutter.
Right. And, in relationships, when times get tough, you sometimes need support. That's where a shoulder to cry on comes in.
Someone who'll listen sympathetically when you're upset, offer comfort.
It implies empathy, being there for someone. After my breakup, I needed a shoulder to cry on, just someone to listen and understand.
And often that kind of supportive person is someone who goes the extra mile, right?
Yes, that fits. Going the extra mile means making a special effort. Doing more than is required or expected, usually out of kindness or dedication.
She always goes the extra mile for her friends. It shows real commitment, putting in that extra effort.
Okay, how about idioms related to time, or maybe how directly we speak? We saw beat around the bush.
This one means avoiding the main point, right? Talking about related stuff, but not the core issue, maybe because it's awkward or unpleasant.
Exactly. Dancing around the subject. It can be really frustrating if someone does this. The example is quite direct. Stop beating around the bush and tell me what happened. Just get to the point.
A classic frustration. And what if something happens, but it's really late?
Well, then it's better late than never. This acknowledges that, okay, punctuality would have been better, but showing up or finishing the thing is still preferable to not doing it at all.
He arrived an hour late, but better late than never.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you're here now. That's what counts.
Right. And when you're done working for the day, what do?
You call it a day. Yeah, very common. Just means stopping work, heading home.
Yep. I'm tired. Let's call it a day. Time to wrap things up.
Okay, moving on. Let's look at idioms about luck, frequency, or who has control. What about something that happens very, very rarely?
For that, the sources point to once in a blue moon. It means something happens extremely infrequently, almost never.
Is a blue moon actually a thing? Or just a phrase?
It is actually a thing. It refers to the rare occurrence of a second full moon within the same calendar month. It doesn't happen often. So the idiom borrows that rarity. We go out for dinner once in a blue moon, meaning it's a very rare occasion for us.
Interesting. Okay. Now, what about when it's someone else's turn to make a decision or take action?
That's when the ball's in your court. It comes from sports like tennis or volleyball. Once you hit the ball over the net, it's on their side.
Your responsibility to return it.
Exactly. So the idiom means the responsibility for the next step, the next decision, now rests with that other person.
I've done all I can. Now the ball is in your court. Like, I've made my move. Over to you.
Perfect. And what if you hear something, but you're not sure you should fully believe it?
You should take it with a grain of salt. Means be a bit skeptical, right? Don't accept it as absolute fact because it might be exaggerated or not quite right.
Precisely. Listen, but maintain a healthy dose of skepticism. He tends to exaggerate, take his stories with a grain of salt. Just be aware it might not be the full picture.
Got it. Let's tackle idioms about, say, health, stress, or maybe problems that turn out okay. First, if you're just feeling a bit off, not really sick, but not well either.
A very common one is under the weather. It's a gentle, sort of vague way to say you're feeling unwell, not feeling great.
Yeah, less specific than saying I have a cold, just generally not feeling 100%. I'm staying home today, I'm a bit under the weather.
Exactly. And when stress builds up, what might you need to do?
You need to blow off steam. This means doing something to release that pent-up tension or anger or frustration, like letting steam out of a pressure cooker, I guess.
That's the image, yeah. Finding an outlet. I go for a run to blow off steam. Physical activity is a really common way people do it.
Makes sense. Now, what if something seems bad at first, but actually leads to a good outcome later on?
That's called a blessing in disguise. It's something that feels like a misfortune initially, but ends up resulting in something positive you wouldn't have expected. An unforeseen benefit.
Losing that job was a blessing in disguise. Felt awful at the time, but maybe it led to finding a much better career path. You see the good outcome later.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that hidden positive. Okay, nearly there. Let's look at decision-making moments. When you face a major choice about your future path.
The sources say you're at a crossroads. Like standing at an intersection, needing to choose which road to take, and knowing it's an important choice.
Precisely. It emphasizes a critical decision point. I'm at a crossroads in my career. I need to make a big choice about what's next.
And what if a plan completely fails? You have to, well, start over.
Then you're back to square one. It means having to restart the whole process from the very beginning because the previous attempt failed.
The plan failed, so we're back to square one.
Ugh.
All that work. Gone. Time to rethink and try again.
It's a frustrating feeling. Or maybe, instead of the plan failing, someone simply changes their mind about something they were going to do.
They have a change of heart. Their feelings or intentions shift, leading them to make a different decision.
Yeah, he had a change of heart and didn't move away. He was planning to go, but something made him decide to stay.
Okay, let's wrap up with a few about thinking, learning, being clever, creative thinking.
The phrase is think outside the box. It means being creative, unconventional, not sticking to the usual ways of doing things, finding novel solutions by challenging assumptions.
Looking beyond the obvious constraints. The solution was amazing. She really thought outside the box. Her idea was fresh, different.
Exactly. And what about figuring something out logically using the clues you have?
That's put two and two together. Just means drawing a logical conclusion from the evidence, connecting the dots.
You see the pieces, you figure out the picture. I saw the suitcase and put two and two together. He was leaving. The suitcase was the clue. The conclusion was travel.
Makes sense. And finally, getting familiar with a new job or task. Learning the basics.
You learn the ropes. It means figuring out how things work in a new environment or role, usually through practice and experience. Learning the essential procedures, the routines.
It took a few weeks, but I finally learned the ropes at my new job. Becoming competent, getting comfortable.
And that really covers quite a range from the sources, doesn't it? From, starting things off, dealing with problems, feelings, decisions, right through to creativity and learning.
It really does. And hopefully exploring not just the definitions, but the feel and context of these idioms helps you, the listener, see how they weave into everyday English and how using them can, well, make your own communication feel much more natural, more fluent.
Absolutely. It's less about just memorizing lists, isn't it? More about getting the flavor of the language. They add color, they add punch. And, like anything, it just takes practice. Try to notice them when you hear them. Maybe try using one yourself now and then.
Yeah, definitely. And it is fascinating how many use these really concrete images, barking dogs, boats, cakes, salt, to talk about abstract ideas. It makes you think, doesn't it? Like, is this kind of a vivid, non-literal phrasing something you find in all languages? Or does English have a particular knack for packing meaning into these memorable, sometimes slightly odd little phrases?
Mumbling.
Something to chew on, perhaps.
You shared a master class with me about
speaking
speaking and understanding faster English, so we are diving into that today.
Yeah, and I think it'll be great to not just figure out how to understand rapid-fire English, but also how to speak it more naturally and fluently ourselves.
For sure, for sure. I saw in the source material, they talk about this shadowing technique. I'm really curious to learn more about that. But first, why does English sound so fast to non-native speakers in the first place?
I think it's a few different things all coming together at once. One big thing is connected speech.
Okay.
Which is basically how words kind of blend together. Instead of what do you want? It sounds more like what do you wanna?
Yeah. So it's not that the words themselves are faster. It's just they all kind of...
They mush together.
Yeah, they get mashed together, yeah. And then there's all those contractions too, right?
Absolutely. Contractions and reductions are everywhere in natural English. And I think they definitely add to the speed. Things like, going to do, becoming gonna, or want to, shrinking to wanna.
Yeah.
It's like we like to be lazy with our words, but it makes it hard for people to understand.
Yeah. No, what is this schwa thing I keep hearing about?
Yeah, so the schwa...
What is that?
The schwa is a tricky one. It's like this chameleon vowel that changes based on the sounds that are around it.
Oh, okay.
It's this really unstressed, kind of mumbly sound you hear in words like, the classic example is banana. It's not banana, it's more like bunana.
Yeah.
It just becomes this lazy sound.
So the schwa, it can pop up in any word then.
Yeah.
Not just, banana is the one everyone uses.
It can even happen a bunch of times in the same word. Think of the word photography.
Yeah.
It's not photography, it's more like photography.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah.
The schwa can really change how a word sounds.
It really is like a secret code. I think an audio example would be really good here.
Yeah.
The masterclass actually gives an example of, I should have told you earlier, both at kind of a slower speed and a native speed.
Okay.
So let's listen to that.
Sounds good.
Audio plays, I should have told you earlier, followed by, I should have told you earlier. Yeah, it's crazy.
It does.
It's almost like two different languages. I can totally see why this is a challenge.
Yeah. But you know what's cool is that you don't necessarily need to hear every single sound
Right.
to get what's being said. Our brains are actually really good at filling in the missing information.
That's good to know because, yes, some of that is, like, impossible to understand. Okay, so how do we train our ears to be better at, like, decoders of all this?
Well, one really good way is to practice something called chunking.
Okay.
And basically, instead of getting stuck on each individual word, you try to hear phrases as like units.
Oh.
It's kind of like how we read, right? We're not focusing on each letter. We group the letters into words.
Yeah.
And then phrases.
Can you give me, like, an example?
Yeah, sure. Imagine someone's like, do you want to grab some lunch later?
Yeah.
If you try to pick out every single sound,
Yeah.
it's just a jumble, right?
Yeah.
But if you kind of chunk it together in your mind, do you want to grab some lunch later?
Right.
It becomes way more clear.
Oh, yeah.
So you kind of get the big idea.
Yeah, you're listening for the key idea and not every little word.
Exactly.
Cool, cool. That kind of leads into the next thing, right? About listening in layers.
It does, yeah.
This sounds very Zen-like.
It is. It is. It's like, think about listening to a song for the first time. You're not going to catch all the words,
Right.
all the lyrics, all the nuances right away, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with English.
So we're listening to the same thing multiple times.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, and what are the layers?
Well, so on the first pass, you're just listening for the gist. Who's talking? What are they talking about?
Right.
And then on the second listen, you try to pick out keywords that'll give you more context.
Okay.
And then on the third listen, that's when you can really zero in on like the tricky bits,
Okay.
like the connected speech, maybe those contractions you couldn't quite pick out the first time.
Okay, it's kind of like peeling back an onion, right?
Exactly.
You get a little more information every time.
You got it.
Cool. We actually have a dialogue example in the masterclass that we can use to try this
Perfect.
audio plays. Hey, do you want to grab some coffee? Yeah, but let me finish this first. Cool, I'll meet you in 10.
Okay.
So how would we use this layered listening for this little coffee shop conversation?
Okay, so on that first listen, you're getting, okay, two people are going to get coffee.
Yeah.
Easy.
Easy.
Then on that second layer, you might pick out keywords like coffee, maybe finish this, and then like 10 minutes.
Okay.
So now you're getting a better picture of what's going on.
All right.
And then finally, on the third listen, you can really zoom in. Like, okay, do you want it? Let me.
Yeah.
How are they using those contractions and reductions?
Okay, yeah, that makes it much less intimidating,
Yeah.
breaking it down like that. Now, what about speaking faster? How do we do that without sounding like, you know,
Yeah.
some kind of robot?
Like a robot reading a dictionary.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. Well, this masterclass talks a lot about sounding natural and fluent, not just talking faster.
Right.
Like you said, we don't want to sacrifice clarity just to sound fast.
Yeah, so are there specific techniques for this?
Well, remember all those contractions and reductions we talked about?
Yeah.
Those are really important for speaking fluently, too.
So instead of saying, like, I'm going to the store, I should say, I'm going to go to the store.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Oh.
And it might feel a little weird at first,
It does.
but I promise it just makes your English sound smoother and more effortless.
Okay. But how do we actually get used to doing that?
Right. Well, that's where that shadowing technique comes in.
Okay.
So you are going to be like a vocal chameleon. You listen to a native speaker.
Yeah. Say a phrase or a sentence. You pause it, and then you try to repeat exactly what they said,
Okay.
matching their pronunciation, intonation, and speed.
So, okay, so like, what are you doing? I should say more like, what you doing?
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And you can start slow, and then as you get more comfortable, you can speed it up.
That's cool. Are there any other techniques we can use?
Yeah. Another one is linking. So like native speakers, we just do it naturally. But it's something that you might have to practice consciously if you're learning.
Okay.
So like, for instance, not at all often becomes not at all.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So the tan sound from not blends with that vowel sound of at.
Oh, that's so subtle. Wow.
It is.
I want to try a little fast reading challenge, can I?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so the source material has the sentence, would you like to go to the movies later?
Yeah.
How would a native speaker actually say that?
Probably something like, would ya? Like, go to the movies later.
Wow, that's a mouthful. Okay, so I'm noticing would you becomes would ya, to is like ta. and the like disappears before movies.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's all about those smooth transitions.
Yeah. Okay. I can already tell I need to practice that one. We've been practicing here in this nice, perfect little world, right?
Right.
How do we take this into the real world where there's all kinds of accents and people talking at all different speeds?
That is the real challenge, right? Because the real world is full of all these variations, different accents, slang, speaking styles.
Yeah.
It's really like taking what you learned in the classroom and then...
throwing yourself into the deep end.
Exactly.
Yeah, I remember that feeling.
Yeah.
It was, like, scary. So what advice does the masterclass have for us for bridging that gap?
Well, I mean, really, it's about exposure and practice.
Okay.
The more you immerse yourself in the language, the more prepared you'll be to handle those real-world variations.
What are some good ways to get that real-world practice?
Well, they talk about watching TV shows and movies.
Oh.
You can start with the subtitles on
Uh-huh.
to get the gist, and then challenge yourself.
Right.
Turn the subtitles off. See how much you could understand.
Yeah, I find even watching with English subtitles, like, helps me
Yeah.
pick up stuff I might not have noticed otherwise.
Yeah, for sure. And then there's podcasts,
Okay.
which are great because you can adjust the speed.
Right.
You can start slow, work your way up.
What about actually talking with native speakers?
Well, that's the best practice you can get, right?
Right.
Find language exchange partners, maybe join some groups online, or even,
Yeah.
if you're brave enough,
Yeah.
strike up conversations with people you meet.
I remember I was so scared to talk to native speakers when I was learning English,
Yeah.
but I realized, like, pretty quickly, most people are really patient and they appreciate the effort you're making.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it really is about just building that confidence and not being afraid to, like, mess up.
For sure. Don't be afraid to ask people to slow down or repeat themselves.
Yeah.
People are happy to help.
Yeah. So we really need to embrace that messiness, right? It's
Yeah.
going to be messy. It's not going to be perfect.
Absolutely.
Now, the masterclass has one final challenge for us before we wrap up this first part of our deep dive.
Okay.
They want us to imagine we're hanging out with friends,
Mm-hmm.
and they ask, hey, deal up for a movie tonight.
Fun.
Okay, I'm ready for this challenge. Let's hear it.
Okay.
Audio plays. Hey, you're up for a movie tonight. Dunno. What's playing? That new sci-fi one looks cool. All right, let me check the show times.
Oh, casual, fast English.
So what techniques are we hearing in this?
Okay, well, right away we hear that contraction, ya,
Right.
instead of you, and then what's playing. It combines like what is and playing
Right.
into one little chunk.
I noticed they're saying do know instead of don't know, and then
Yeah.
let me instead of let me.
It's amazing how those little things make such a big difference.
Yeah, it's like a little puzzle.
It is.
All these pieces, you can even hear that linking, like looks cool becomes looks cool. That's so cool. Okay, so now the challenge is to imagine how we would respond
Yes.
using everything we've talked about.
Exactly. And there's no one right answer.
Right.
It's about using what you've learned and seeing how you can apply it to this conversation.
So we're leaving you with that challenge for now, dear listener. How would you respond to this invitation to go to the movies? We'll explore this more in the next part of our deep dive.
It's crazy to think about how all these like tiny little things, the contractions, the schwa sound linking,
Yeah.
it all adds up to make English sound so fast.
Right.
But at the end of the day, like, it's not really about speed, is it?
No, not really. It's more about understanding each other.
Right, being able to communicate.
Exactly.
I think that's easy to forget when you get so caught up in like the rules and the technical stuff.
It's easy to get bogged down in that.
Yeah.
And forget why we're even learning the language.
Totally. I like that this masterclass really focuses on that, like the human element of language.
Yeah.
It does.
Mhm.
It gives some good advice about how to turn all this stuff we're talking about into like real fluency.
That's what I'm curious about, because I feel like I've hit walls so many times where I'm just like, I'm not getting any better. Like, what's the secret to getting over those plateaus?
Well, it's not really a secret. I think a lot of people they don't do it,
Yeah.
but it's practice.
Yeah.
It's consistent practice.
Okay, so not just like cramming.
Right, not just cramming a bunch of words and grammar rules,
Right, yeah.
but really making it a habit.
Okay, yeah. So what would a good practice routine look like? Say I'm like just starting out.
Well, I mean, even if you could just do like 15, 20 minutes a day of focused listening.
Okay.
That's huge. It could be podcasts, TV shows, whatever you enjoy.
Right.
You could even just listen to conversations happening around you.
Right. That's such a good, like, easy tip,
It is. It is.
You don't need anything special for that.
Just like go to a coffee shop, listen to people talking.
Yeah. Exactly. What about for speaking practice?
Speaking practice is a little tougher.
Yeah.
Because you have to actually,
Find someone to talk to.
Yeah.
Right?
But there's a lot of groups online.
Uh-huh.
Language exchange apps and things like that.
Yeah.
You could even record yourself speaking and then listen back.
I used to do that.
Yeah.
It's so helpful.
Right. You catch all these little mistakes.
It is a little cringy, though.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
But it's like having your own little language coach.
It is. And you said it earlier, too. It's okay to make mistakes.
Absolutely. That's how we learn.
That's how we learn, yeah.
Yeah. Now let's talk about the shadowing technique. We kind of touched on it earlier. Can you explain a little bit more about how that works and why it's so good?
It's basically karaoke for language learning.
Okay.
You listen to a native speaker,
Yeah.
try to repeat exactly what they're saying,
Okay.
matching their rhythm, intonation, everything.
So it's like a workout for your mouth?
It is. It is. Getting it to do all those weird sounds.
Exactly. And you could do it with anything.
Oh, okay.
Like a podcast, a song,
Oh, cool.
a scene from a movie.
That sounds fun. What are some tips for making practice in general more interesting?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times people think of it as a chore, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's important to find stuff that you're actually interested in.
Right.
Like if you love to cook,
Yeah.
watch cooking shows in English. If you're a sports fan,
Yeah.
listen to sports commentary.
It's so true. Like when it's something I like, it feels like I'm like not even trying.
Right, because you're actually paying attention.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, just find ways to connect your interests with language learning.
Right. It shouldn't be boring.
No, it should be fun.
Yeah. Even when we are enjoying it, I feel like we all hit those like plateaus.
Yeah.
How do we deal with that?
Well, I think it's important to remember that progress isn't always like a straight line, You're going to have times when you feel like you're rocketing forward and times where you feel like you're just stuck.
Yeah, like going backwards almost.
Right. And that's totally normal.
Yeah.
But you can't give up.
Right.
Just keep practicing and trust the process.
It's like when you're working out, right?
It is.
You hit those plateaus. It's like, I'm doing all this and nothing's happening.
Right. But just like with fitness, consistency is key.
Okay.
Just keep at it.
And celebrate those like little wins, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to get focused on this big like end goal
Yeah.
and forget how far you've come.
Right. It's like looking at old pictures of yourself like, oh my God.
Exactly. You
Yeah.
make so much progress.
Yeah. And that actually brings us to like confidence. Right.
It does.
Because when you can understand and be understood,
Uh-huh.
you feel more confident. You feel more like able to.
You're not just a passive observer. You're an active participant.
Yeah. A whole new world opens up, basically.
It does. It does.
Yeah. Okay. So we've talked about a lot of technical stuff.
We have.
And resources and even like the emotional and social benefits of being fluent.
Uh-huh.
I know this masterclass has one last challenge for us before we wrap up this section of our deep dive.
Okay. I'm ready.
So, remember that movie night situation we talked about?
Yeah.
Our friends invited us to go to a movie.
Yeah. They asked you up for a movie tonight.
And we heard all the back and forth about,
Yep.
what's playing and everything.
What time? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so now the challenge is, what would you say? There's no script this time.
No, I like it.
Just like, what would you say?
It's like they're saying, okay, here are all the tools. Now you go.
Exactly, yeah.
Make something beautiful.
Yeah.
It's your turn.
Yeah. And I think that's what this whole deep dive is about, right?
It is, yeah.
It's not about memorizing.
Yeah.
It's about being able to actually use the language.
It's about empowering you to use the language.
Yeah, yeah. So, dear listener, that's the challenge for you. Put yourself back in that situation.
Yep.
What would you say? How would you use these techniques we've talked about?
Yeah, don't overthink it.
Yeah.
Just like, what's your gut reaction?
Yeah.
Have fun with it.
I love that. Okay, I'm going to try.
Okay.
So if my friends asked if I was up for a movie, I might say, yeah, totally. What are we thinking of watching?
Perfect.
I'm using a contraction.
You are.
I'm keeping it casual.
You are.
And I'm expressing enthusiasm.
Yes, you are.
I love it. And I'm already feeling more confident just thinking about,
I love that.
using all this stuff.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about, right? Is finding your own voice.
Yeah.
And just being comfortable.
Awesome. So, dear listener, we want you to find your voice.
Yes.
Experiment, try new things, push yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit.
And remember, fluency is not like an end point.
Right.
It's an ongoing journey.
It is, yeah.
Full of ups and downs. And it's all about connection,
It is, yeah.
Connecting with other people.
Okay, I think this is a good place to take a quick break. And then we'll come back and wrap up our deep dive into speaking and understanding fast English. I'm still thinking about that movie night challenge.
Yeah,
I like how it makes us actually, use what we learned.
it is. It's a good way to, bridge the gap
Yeah.
between the ideas and actually putting it into practice.
Totally. It reminds us this isn't just about, memorizing rules. It's
Yeah.
about, using language to actually talk with people.
Right, language is about connection.
Yeah. This deep dive has been awesome.
Yeah.
Can we do a quick recap of what we talked about?
Yeah, for sure.
Just to make sure I've got all the key takeaways?
Okay, well, I think the first thing to remember is that speed is just one part of being fluent.
Okay.
You don't want to just talk fast.
Yeah.
You got to be clear.
Yeah.
And you got to sound natural.
Right. So it's a balance.
Exactly.
Okay. And one way to do that is using all those contractions and reductions.
Yeah, definitely. Those are super important.
Yeah.
They really make your English flow.
Now, what about chunking?
Oh, yeah, chunking's huge.
Yeah.
Training yourself to hear those chunks of words instead of every single word.
It's like we're upgrading our brains.
It is. It's like a software update
Yeah.
for your ears.
That's a good way to put it. And then we have that layered listening approach. First the gist, then the keywords, then all that subtle details.
Right, like connected speech and all that.
Okay, and then for speaking, we've got that shadowing technique.
Ah, yes, shadowing.
That was really cool. Like having a pronunciation coach in your ear.
Exactly. And you can do it with anything.
Right, any material that interests you.
Yeah.
So we've got all the tools. Now what's the secret to putting this all together? What's the magic formula?
Well, again, it's not really a secret. It's consistent practice.
Oh.
Finding things that you enjoy.
Right. It should be fun.
It should be fun, yeah. It shouldn't feel like a chore.
Totally. Because when it's fun, you actually want to do it.
Exactly. And you'll learn faster that way, too.
Yeah. So find things that you're into, like movies, podcasts.
Yeah. Or connect with other people who are learning.
Yeah.
You can all practice together.
Now we all know fluency isn't you don't just arrive there one day.
No, it's a journey.
Yeah.
With lots of twists and turns.
Yeah. And we're going to mess up along the way.
Oh, for sure.
You just got to keep going.
Absolutely. Celebrate the wins and learn from the mistakes.
I think that's a great way to wrap up our deep dive.
Yeah.
So, dear listener, hopefully this has given you some new ideas for how to take your English to the next level.
Yeah. Keep practicing and keep exploring.
And keep connecting with people.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, language is about connecting.
So true. That's it for our deep dive into speaking and understanding fast English.
Thanks for joining us.
We'll see you next time.
Ever feel like you're just wading through a sea of words?
Uh-huh. Yeah, I know that feeling.
But today, we're diving into the deep end.
That's right.
We're going to explore some advanced English vocabulary, 15 words to be exact.
Okay.
And they're all from this book, Test Your English Vocabulary.
Sounds like a challenge.
Well, it's not about memorizing definitions or anything like that.
Oh, good.
We're going to uncover their hidden depths and how these words connect to the bigger picture.
I like that. It's fascinating how these words can really unlock a deeper understanding of human behavior and communication and even our perception of time.
Absolutely. And to make it a little easier, we'll group our 15 words into themes.
Okay.
First up, the art of communication,
All right.
or sometimes the lack of it.
Right.
Let's start with loquacious. I'm sure you've met someone like this. They could talk a blue streak.
Yeah.
Holding court at a party, even if no one else gets a word in edgewise.
Oh, yeah, for sure. That's our loquacious friend.
Yeah.
It's interesting to contrast that with someone who's laconic. They might only say a few words, but those words carry weight. Think of a seasoned judge delivering a verdict. Just brief, to the point, no wasted syllables.
Oh, I like that example. Now, have you ever noticed how some people use big words to actually avoid clear communication?
All the time.
That's where obfuscate comes in.
Right.
It's like they're trying to build a wall of jargon to hide behind.
It happens a lot, especially in fields like, law or finance.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's unintentional. They're so used to speaking a certain way, they don't realize it's confusing to others.
Right.
But other times it's a deliberate tactic, make things seem more complex than they are.
Yeah, it's like they think if they use enough fancy words, no one will question what they're actually saying.
Right.
But we're smarter than that.
Absolutely.
We're going to see right through that obfuscation and get to the heart of the matter.
And sometimes the most straightforward language is the most powerful.
Okay, enough about communication. Let's talk about behavior. Our next group of words explores some interesting character types we all encounter.
Okay.
The sycophant, the ostentatious and the austere.
Hmm.
Let's start with the sycophant.
All right.
Oof. Just the word makes me cringe. You know that person who's always showering someone with insincere praise just to get on their good side?
Yeah, the classic yes man, always trying to curry favor. It's interesting to think about why someone might behave this way. Could it be a lack of confidence or maybe even a manipulative strategy to gain power?
Oh, it makes you wonder, right? Now let's swing to the opposite end of the spectrum with ostentatious.
Okay.
This is our friend who loves to flaunt their wealth or success.
Oh, yeah.
Think of the person who always has to have the latest designer clothes, the flashiest car, always name-dropping their fancy vacations.
Yeah, it's all about outward appearances, often masking a deeper need for validation. It makes you think about our society's obsession with status symbols and material possessions, doesn't it?
Totally. Now, in contrast to the ostentatious, we have the austere. This describes someone who lives a simple, unadorned life.
Right.
They're not interested in flashy displays or material wealth. Think of a minimalist who values experiences over possessions.
That's a fascinating counterpoint to the ostentatious lifestyle. You know, in a world that constantly bombards us with messages about what we should want and need, the austere individual chooses a different path.
And I think the word propensity ties all three of these words together nicely.
How so?
Well, it refers to our natural tendencies or inclinations. We might have a propensity for flattery, for extravagance, for simplicity. These tendencies shape our behavior in all sorts of ways.
Exactly. We all have propensities, and recognizing them in ourselves and others can be key to understanding why we act the way we do.
Now let's shift gears and get a little philosophical. Our next group of words deals with time and the intangible.
Okay.
Ephemeral, ubiquitous, and the ineffable.
All right.
Have you ever experienced something beautiful but fleeting, like a stunning sunset that disappears in minutes?
Oh, yeah.
That's the essence of ephemeral.
It's about recognizing the beauty in transience, in those moments that are precious because they don't last. In a world that often values permanence and stability, the ephemeral reminds us to cherish the fleeting moments.
That's beautifully put. Now, on the flip side, we have ubiquitous, which describes something that's absolutely everywhere. It used to be rare to see someone using a smartphone, but now they're ubiquitous. You see them on every street corner and every cafe.
Yeah, it's incredible how quickly things can shift from novel to commonplace.
Right.
The ubiquity of technology, for example, has had a profound impact on our lives, for better or for worse.
And finally, we come to ineffable, which might be my favorite word of the bunch.
Oh, why is that?
Well, it describes something so profound, so awe-inspiring, that words simply cannot capture it. Have you ever had an experience like that, where language just failed you?
Absolutely. Sometimes the most profound experiences are the ones that transcend language, like the feeling of standing on a mountaintop overlooking this vast landscape or witnessing the birth of a child. These are moments that defy easy description.
It makes you realize the limitations of language, doesn't it? There are some things that words simply can't convey.
And yet that doesn't stop us from trying, from searching for the words that come closest to expressing the inexpressible.
Well said. Ready to tackle our next set of words.
Hit me with it.
This group focuses on actions and reactions.
Yeah.
Perfunctory, temerity, and recant. Let's start with perfunctory.
Okay.
You know those days when you're just going through the motions?
Yeah.
Doing something out of habit or obligation, but without any real heart?
Yeah.
That's perfunctory in action.
We all have those days, right? The key is to recognize when we're stuck in a rut and to make an effort to infuse our actions with more intention and meaning.
So true. Now let's talk about temerity.
Right.
This word is all about boldness, audacity, even a little bit of recklessness. It's about having the guts to do something daring, even if it goes against the grain.
Right.
Have you ever witnessed an act of pure temerity?
Yes, actually. I recall a time when a junior researcher presented this groundbreaking theory that challenged, the established thinking in the field.
Wow.
It was a bold move considering the potential backlash from senior colleagues.
Wow, that takes courage.
It does.
That makes you wonder, what's the line between temerity and foolishness? I guess it depends on the outcome, right?
I suppose it does. But sometimes those acts of temerity are the ones that lead to true innovation and progress.
And finally, we have recant.
Okay.
This is about taking back your words, admitting you were wrong, often in a public way.
Right.
It could be a politician retracting a statement, a scientist revising a theory, or someone simply owning up to a mistake.
It's a powerful act, recanting.
Yeah.
It requires humility, a willingness to acknowledge our fallibility. In a world where people are often afraid to admit they're wrong, recanting can be a sign of true strength and integrity.
It's about putting truth above ego, which can be a tough thing to do.
It can.
All right, ready to move on to our last group of words.
Let's do it.
This one's all about dreamers and realists, and it centers around the word quixotic.
Quixotic. Named after the idealistic knight, Don Quixote.
Right.
He's famous for tilting at windmills, mistaking them for giants. It's a wonderful example of how idealism and imagination can sometimes clash with reality.
Exactly. The word quixotic captures that blend of idealism, romanticism, and perhaps a touch of naivete.
Yeah.
It makes you think about the balance between chasing dreams and being grounded in reality.
It's a delicate balance, isn't it? On the one hand, we need idealism to inspire us, to push us beyond the limits of what seems possible. But on the other hand, we need pragmatism to navigate the complexities of the real world and make progress towards those ideals.
So true.
Yeah.
And sometimes those seemingly impossible quixotic goals can lead to unexpected breakthroughs.
Absolutely. It's about finding that sweet spot between dreaming big and taking practical steps to make those dreams a reality. What about you? Do you have any quixotic goals you're pursuing?
That's a great question. I'm going to have to ponder that one for a bit.
Okay, but in the meantime.
So, any thoughts on those quixotic goals? Did any come to mind during that little pause?
You know, I was thinking about how even outlandish goals can spark innovation. Like, if no one had ever had that crazy idea to fly, well, we wouldn't have airplanes, right?
It's true. Sometimes it's not about reaching that exact vision, but what we discover on the way there.
Exactly. And speaking of journeys, it strikes me how the words we've been discussing, they're not just isolated units of meaning. They're part of a larger system.
Right.
A network of interconnected ideas.
That's like a constellation.
Oh, I like that.
Each star adds to the overall beauty and significance of the pattern.
It's true. We've been focusing on individual words, but it's the way we use them, the context, the nuances. That's what brings language to life.
Exactly. Take a word like austere, for instance.
Okay.
It can describe a monk's simple life, but also the starkness of a desert landscape. Or even like a government's harsh economic policies. Same word, but vastly different connotations depending on how it's used. It reminds me of how a single musical note can evoke different emotions based on the melody and the surrounding notes.
That's a fantastic analogy. And just like a composer carefully chooses notes to create a specific mood, skilled communicators select words to evoke feelings and convey precise meaning.
This makes me think about the importance of expanding our vocabulary, not just for intellectual reasons, but to become more effective communicators.
Right.
The more words we have at our disposal, the more precisely we can express ourselves.
It's like having a wider range of colors on an artist's palette. A limited palette can still create beautiful art, but imagine the possibilities when you have every shade and hue imaginable.
And not only can a rich vocabulary enhance our own communication, but it also helps us understand the nuances of what others are saying.
Absolutely. Think about how, politicians or advertisers use carefully chosen words to influence our opinions and behaviors.
It's true.
The more we understand the subtle ways language can be used, the better equipped we are to critically evaluate the messages we're bombarded with every day.
It's about becoming more aware of the power of words, both for good and for bad, but also appreciating the beauty and complexity of language,
Right.
how it can be used to inspire, to connect, to create art.
And that brings us back to the word ineffable.
Okay.
It describes those experiences that transcend language.
Right.
Even though some things defy description, that doesn't mean we should stop trying to express them.
I agree.
It's the effort, the reaching for meaning that enriches our understanding.
I love that perspective.
Yeah.
Even if we can't perfectly capture an experience in words, the act of trying can help us process it, make sense of it.
Absolutely.
And sometimes those struggles to find the right words lead to the most profound insights.
It's like those moments when a poet struggles to find the perfect rhyme or metaphor.
Yeah.
The result is often a line that's even more beautiful and evocative because of the effort that went into it.
Speaking of poetry, I'm curious, do you have a favorite word? One that you find particularly delightful or thought-provoking?
Oh, that's a tough one. There are so many. But one that's been on my mind lately is serendipity. I love the way it captures those unexpected delights that life throws our way.
Right?
Those moments of fortunate coincidence that lead to new discoveries or connections.
Serendipity is a beautiful word. It reminds me of how sometimes the most meaningful experiences happen when we're not actively seeking them out, when we're open to the unexpected twists and turns of life.
Exactly. It encourages us to embrace a sense of curiosity and wonder, to be open to the possibility that something amazing could be just around the corner.
And who knows, maybe our deep dive today will lead to some serendipitous discoveries for our listeners. They might stumble upon a new favorite word or make an unexpected connection between these words and their own lives.
I certainly hope so. After all, language is about so much more than just definitions. It's about expanding our perspectives, connecting with others, and exploring the richness of human experience.
Now, before we get too philosophical, I think it would be helpful to bring some of these words to life with some concrete examples.
Absolutely. It's one thing to understand a word in the abstract, but it's another to see how it's actually used in context.
For instance, we talked about obfuscate earlier.
Yeah.
I'm curious, how might you see that word used in, say, a legal setting?
Oh, that's an interesting one. In law, you might see obfuscate used to describe a defendant's attempts to hide assets or mislead the court. Or it could be used to criticize a lawyer's dense and confusing legal arguments.
So they're intentionally trying to make things difficult to understand.
It seems that way sometimes.
But as we've been saying, the more we understand these words and the ways they can be used, the better equipped we are to see through those attempts at obfuscation.
Exactly. And speaking of context, I think it'd be interesting to explore the etymology of some of these words.
Oh, yeah.
Trace their origins back to ancient languages and historical events.
I love that idea. Etymology can be like a detective story, uncovering hidden layers of meaning and revealing the fascinating journeys these words have taken over time.
For example, did you know that quixotic comes from the Spanish novel Don Quixote? It's amazing to think how a single literary character can inspire a word that becomes part of our everyday language,
That's true.
carrying with it the spirit of idealism and romanticism.
It's like these words become vessels, carrying centuries of history and cultural meaning within them.
And by delving into their etymology, we can unlock those hidden layers of meaning and gain an even deeper appreciation for the words we use.
It's like going on a linguistic treasure hunt. But instead of digging for gold, we're unearthing the stories and cultural influences that have shaped our language.
And those stories can be just as valuable as any treasure. They remind us that language is a living, breathing entity that's constantly evolving, shaped by the people who use it and the world around them.
This conversation has really sparked my curiosity.
Yeah, mine too.
I'm eager to delve even deeper into the world of language and explore more of its hidden treasures.
Me too. And I have a feeling our listeners are ready to continue this journey with us.
I think so too.
Should we take another short pause and come back for a final round of exploration?
That sounds like a perfect plan. We'll be back soon to wrap up our deep dive into advanced English vocabulary. Welcome back to our deep dive into advanced English vocabulary.
Glad to be back.
It's been such a fascinating journey exploring all these nuances and hidden depths of these words.
Yeah, I agree. It really makes you realize how much richness and complexity there is in language.
Absolutely. And we haven't even touched on idioms and slang,
Oh, that's right.
which adds another layer of color and expressiveness to language.
Imagine trying to explain kick the bucket or spill the beans to someone learning English for the first time.
Oh, that's a good one.
It'd be like trying to teach them a secret code.
Absolutely.
Oh.
And every language has its own unique set of idioms and colloquialisms, right?
Right. It really reflects the history and the culture and even the sense of humor of a language.
Makes you realize how much language is tied to our identity,
Yeah.
both as individuals and as members of a particular community.
And it highlights the importance of cultural exchange and understanding.
Yeah.
The more we learn about other languages and their nuances, the more we expand our own worldview.
Now, before we wrap up, I wanted to touch on something we haven't really talked about yet. The role of grammar and syntax in effective communication.
Ah, yes, grammar and syntax. While we've been focusing on individual words, it's the way we arrange those words, the structure of our sentences. That's what allows us to convey complex thoughts and ideas.
It's like building a house, right?
Yeah.
You need strong, well-crafted bricks, but you also need a solid framework to hold them together.
Precisely. Grammar and syntax provide that framework. They ensure that our message is clear and coherent and easy to understand.
It's amazing to think about how even a slight change in word order or punctuation can completely alter the meaning of a sentence.
A misplaced comma can lead to all sorts of ambiguity and confusion.
So true. And that brings us to another important point, the importance of being precise and intentional with our language choices.
Especially in written communication where we don't have the tone of voice or body language to help convey our meaning.
Exactly. It makes you realize how much responsibility we have as communicators to use language carefully and thoughtfully.
And it highlights the importance of editing and revising our work to make sure our message is clear, accurate, and free of errors.
Well said. Now, as we come to the end of our deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a few key takeaways.
Okay.
First and foremost, language is constantly evolving.
It's true. New words are being coined all the time. Old words take on new meanings.
It's like a river,
Yeah.
always flowing and changing shape.
Which means we need to be lifelong learners. Always curious about language and how it's being used in the world around us.
I also want to encourage our listeners to embrace the power of language,
Absolutely.
to see it as a tool for connection, for creativity, for making a difference.
Words have the power to inspire, to inform, to persuade, to heal.
But they can also be used to harm, to deceive, to manipulate. So it's crucial that we use them responsibly and ethically.
Couldn't agree more.
And finally, language is a source of endless fascination and delight. There's always something new to discover, some hidden meaning to uncover, some unexpected connection to make.
That's one of the most beautiful things about it.
So keep exploring, keep learning, keep playing with words, and most importantly, never stop being curious about the incredible power of language.
Well said. Until next time, keep diving deep into the world of words.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to another deep dive with us. So today we're going to be looking at something pretty interesting.
Yeah, this should be fun.
Yeah. Basically, we're going to be going over the top 21 most frequently used words in the English language.
Yeah, and it's really amazing how such a small set of words can make up like the foundation for like daily conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And, whether you're a beginner or, you consider yourself more advanced, understanding these words and how to use them effectively, is really going to help you sound more fluent, more natural. So joining me today to, help us unpack all of this and really give us some good insights is...
Hi, everyone.
So I'm really excited to jump into this with you. So I guess to start off, our source has broken down these 21 words into different categories.
Right.
So we've got verbs and we've got conversational words and then we've got nouns and adjectives. So I figure, why don't we just go in order?
Mm-hmm.
Verbs, those are like the action words, right? The workhorses of the sentence. So
Yeah.
let's start there.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So the first one on the list is go. And, I think most people, when they think about go, they're it's about like physical movement.
Right. Like I go to the store.
Right. Exactly.
But, it can also indicate like a change of state. Like the lights went out or even like a progression of time, like as the years go by.
That's so true. I never really thought about like all the different ways that we use that one little word, go. All right. What about get? That one seems even more, multifaceted.
Yeah, get is a very interesting one, because it often implies a process or a change of state that's sort of outside of your direct control.
Oh, okay.
So you think about phrases like get sick or get lost. It's
Okay.
like something is happening to you. It's not like you're directly making it happen.
Right. It's like something's being done to you.
Exactly.
But then on the other hand, you have phrases like get rich or get ahead.
Right.
And those have a very different connotation.
Yeah.
Right. It's much more like intentional, almost aspirational.
Yeah, it's like get reflects our relationship with change itself, whether it's something we're actively pursuing or something that's kind of being imposed upon us.
That's so interesting. I like that a lot. Okay, so moving right along. Next up we have do. And this one always feels to me like the ultimate multitasker.
Definitely.
He can do so many things.
Absolutely. It's amazing how often do just pops up in our sentences. From describing our jobs, like, what do you do?
Right.
To expressing obligations, I have to do my homework. It really is like the Swiss Army knife of verbs.
Yeah, and it plays such a key role in questions too. Do you like pizza? Did you see that movie? Like it's just, it makes the question a question.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've had go, we've had get, we've had do. What about have?
Oh, have. That's another one that's surprisingly versatile.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously we use it for possession. I have a car.
Right.
But we also use it for experiences. I had a great time.
Uh-huh.
And then, all those idioms too. Have a nice day. Have a good one. These are just ingrained into our everyday conversations.
Yeah, and I think have really highlights how so much of language is really about more than just, the literal meaning. It's about, creating a feeling or, connecting with someone on a social level.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's tackle make. I feel like this is one I use constantly. Make dinner, make a decision, make a mistake. It's all about like creating something or causing something to happen.
Yes.
But then there's also this element of obligation sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Like I made him apologize.
Exactly. Make implies that you're kind of bringing something into being. You're causing something to happen. And you're right about the obligation aspect, too. It can be used to express, influence or even a sense of like responsibility for something.
Well, like you're the driving force behind whatever is happening.
Exactly.
Okay. And last but not least on our list of verbs, we have take.
Take. Now, this is an interesting one because take often involves a sense of action combined with possession or control. So, think about phrases like take a break, take a seat, take charge.
Right. It's like you're asserting yourself in some way, whether you're taking something for yourself or taking control of a situation.
Exactly.
So, okay, we've got go get, do have, make, and take. That is a lot of verbal power packed into 6 little words.
It really is. It's amazing how much we can express with just the small set of verbs.
Okay, so we've covered the verbs. Now let's move on to those little words that I like to think of as kind of like the glue that holds our conversations together. Those little conversational connectors?
Right.
So things like hi and bye and thanks and sorry. I mean, how deep can we really go with these?
You might be surprised. Even these seemingly simple expressions play a really vital role in how we interact with each other.
Okay.
For example, hi and hello, they're not just greetings. They signal that you're open to communication and connection.
Oh, so it's like setting the tone right from the start, like you're extending an invitation to engage in a conversation.
Exactly.
Okay, and then on the flip side, we have bye.
Right, which signals, closure. It marks the end of the conversation, and, it allows us to transition smoothly out of the interaction.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've covered greeting and departing. But what about those little words that add a touch of, politeness and gratitude to our interactions?
You mean thanks and sorry?
Exactly.
Ah, yes. Those are powerful tools. They help us maintain social harmony, and they help us, navigate those little bumps in the road of human interaction.
Yeah. Thanks acknowledges a favor, right, or a kind gesture, and it, reinforces those positive interactions that we have. And sorry is all about taking responsibility for something, smoothing over those mistakes and showing empathy.
Exactly. They're subtle, but they're really essential for building good relationships.
Yeah, I think it's interesting how we often, modify these words for emphasis. Like saying thanks a lot. It carries a lot more weight than a simple thanks.
Oh, definitely.
Or I'm so sorry versus just sorry. It adds that extra layer of sincerity.
Exactly. These little nuances can make a big difference.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've explored 6 key verbs and 4 of these essential conversational words.
We have.
Are you starting to see the power of these seemingly simple words?
Oh, absolutely.
It's like we're peeling back the layers and discovering all this like hidden depth to language.
I agree.
All right, so I think we're ready to tackle our next category, which is nouns. So where do we even begin with this?
Well, our source has chosen a handful of nouns that represent like fundamental concepts, the building blocks of how we understand the world.
Okay.
So let's start with time.
Okay, time.
Such a basic concept, yet it governs so much of our lives.
Right. We're constantly thinking of time. What time is it? Do we have enough time? It's like this invisible force shaping our days.
Right. And the source actually delves into some pretty deep questions about time.
Oh, really?
Like, how do different cultures perceive time? What's the relationship between time and memory? It's fascinating stuff.
Okay, now I'm intrigued. All right, so alongside time, we have day, which seems, very ordinary. But, it really does mark the rhythm of our lives. Have a good day. It's a brand new day.
Right. And day can also refer to like a specific period in history, like back in the day or the day the music died. It connects us to this flow of time, both personal and historical.
Wow, I like that. Okay, what's next?
Next up is thing, which I have to admit always makes me chuckle a little bit.
Why is that?
Well, it's like the ultimate catch-all word, for when our vocabulary fails us.
Oh, yeah. It's like the ultimate placeholder. What's that thing over there? The thing is. But, it's actually really effective at conveying meaning, even when we can't come up with, like, a more specific word.
Right. It shows that communication isn't always about, perfect grammar or an extensive vocabulary. It's about getting your message across. And sometimes thing does the job perfectly.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So speaking of conveying meaning, we've got place, next on our list? It seems like a pretty straightforward word, but I'm sure there's more to it than meets the eye.
There is. Place isn't just about physical location. It can also refer to like a position in a sequence, like take your place in line, or even a state of mind, like feeling out of place. It's a word that helps us navigate the world in all sorts of ways.
Right. It's like place isn't just about where we are physically, but also about how we fit in.
Exactly.
And how we make sense of our surroundings.
Exactly.
Okay. And then finally, we have people, which, I mean, it's like, it seems so obvious, but, when you think about it, people are really what makes the world go round, right?
That's true.
People represents our shared humanity.
Right.
That's the foundation of society and relationships and, everything that makes us human.
It's the word that reminds us we're not alone.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we've explored verbs, conversational connectors, and now nouns. I'm already feeling like I have a whole new appreciation for the power of these everyday words. But before we jump into adjectives, I'm curious, what's standing out to you so far?
Honestly, I think what struck me the most is how much depth and nuance there is even in the simplest words. We use them all the time, but we don't often stop and think about how they work.
Yeah. It's like we're taking them for granted.
Totally.
But I think this deep dive is really helping us to, kind of slow down and appreciate the, the intricacies of these words that we usually just take for granted.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So adjectives, I think we're ready.
Let's do it. It's funny how we can go through like our whole lives using these words and never really stop to think about them.
Right. It's true. But that's, I think, what makes this deep dive so interesting.
Yeah.
It's like we're forced to slow down and actually like appreciate these things that we usually just, take for granted.
Yeah.
So last we left off, we were about to delve into the world of adjectives. So are you ready to add some color to our conversation?
Absolutely. Adjectives are what bring our language to life.
Yeah, they do.
They paint pictures in our minds, they evoke emotions, and they help us make sense of the world.
I love that. So true. And they add, that extra layer of detail that just makes our communication so much richer. Okay, so why don't we start with good? I feel like that's like the most basic adjective in the English language.
It really is. Good is our go-to word for expressing approval or satisfaction or, just like the absence of anything negative.
Right.
It's a wonderfully versatile word.
It is.
You can use it for pretty much anything.
I've noticed that good is often used as kind of a conversational placeholder, especially when we're trying to be polite. Or avoid being too critical. Like, oh, that's a good point. Even if you don't really agree with what the person is saying.
Right. It's like a way of maintaining harmony.
Yeah.
Smoothing over those potential disagreements or awkward moments.
Right. Okay, so good is all about positivity and agreeableness. What about new? What kind of energy does new bring?
New is all about excitement, possibility, a sense of change. It draws our attention to something fresh, something that stands out from the ordinary.
Right.
Think about like getting a new phone or starting a new job.
Right.
There's that element of curiosity and intrigue.
There is. It makes you want to learn more to explore. And it can also be a really powerful marketing tool.
Right.
New and improved, the latest and greatest.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's like designed to pique our interest.
Absolutely. New really taps into that human desire for novelty and
Right.
fascination with progress.
Yeah. But then on the other hand, new can also highlight a lack of experience.
That's true.
Like new to the job or a new driver.
Right.
It implies a learning curve.
Definitely.
So it's like a double-edged sword.
Right.
Right. It can be exhilarating.
Right.
But it can also be intimidating.
Depending on the context.
Exactly. Okay, so we've covered good and new. Ready to wrap things up with happy.
Let's do it. Happy is such a fundamental human emotion.
It is.
It resonates across cultures. It's the language of joy and contentment and well-being.
Yeah, and it's amazing how contagious happiness can be. Like when someone greets you with a genuine smile and I say good morning, it can like brighten your whole day.
It's true. It's like this ripple effect.
Yeah.
Spreading positivity.
And happy isn't just about those fleeting moments of joy either.
Right.
It's about, that deeper sense of fulfillment.
Yeah, that sense of purpose.
Yeah. I think that's what makes happy such a powerful word. It encompasses such a, wide spectrum of positive emotion.
I agree.
Okay, so we've tackled adjectives, but I want to circle back to something you said earlier about how adjectives can paint pictures in our minds and evoke emotions. Do you think there's a connection between these simple adjectives and how we experience the world?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think the answer is yes. You know, the words we use shape how we see things. They provide the framework for how we understand and interpret our experiences.
So, for example, if we're constantly using negative adjectives to describe ourselves or the world around us, we might actually start to see things more negatively.
Exactly. The language we use becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Wow.
It influences our thoughts, our emotions, and ultimately our actions.
That's a powerful reminder to be mindful of the words we choose.
It is.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. Verbs, conversational connectors, nouns, adjectives.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much we can learn from just 21 words.
It really is.
And, we haven't even touched on phrasal verbs yet.
Oh, yes.
So those are next on our list. And I think you'll be surprised by how much they add to the richness and complexity of the language.
I think so, too.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Bring on the phrasal verbs. All right, so welcome back to the deep dive. We've already covered so much.
Yeah.
But before the break, you mentioned phrasal verbs. What are those exactly, and why are they so important?
So phrasal verbs are basically like these combinations of a verb and another word, usually like a preposition or an adverb. And when you put them together, they create a totally new meaning.
Okay, so give me an example.
Okay, so let's take the verb look. Pretty straightforward word, right? But when you start adding prepositions like up after or into, you get phrasal verbs with completely different meanings. So like look up means to search for information.
Right.
Look after means to take care of someone. And look into means to investigate something.
Wow, you're right.
So you see how just a little tweak can make our language so much more expressive.
Yeah, absolutely. So are phrasal verbs just about adding more words to our vocabulary?
It's more than just adding words. It's about nuance. It's about idiom. Phrasal verbs capture these subtle shades of meaning that would be really hard to express otherwise.
Oh, yeah.
And they make your English sound much more natural, more like a native speaker.
So if they're so nuanced, how do we even begin to learn all of them?
Well, the good news is you don't have to learn every single phrasal verb out there.
Okay.
Just focus on the most common ones, the ones that come up a lot in everyday conversations.
Okay, that makes sense.
And pay attention to the context, because phrasal verbs can have different meanings depending on the situation.
Right.
So try to learn them in real life examples, not just from lists.
So instead of just memorizing look up, I should try to remember it in a sentence. I need to look at the meaning of this word.
Exactly. Because then you're associating the phrasal verb with a specific meaning and a specific usage.
That's really helpful.
And most importantly, don't be afraid to experiment.
Okay.
The best way to learn phrasal verbs is to actually use them. Start incorporating them into your conversations, even if you're not 100% sure you're using them correctly.
So what if I make a mistake?
Making mistakes is part of the learning process. Even native speakers make mistakes with phrasal verbs all the time.
Okay, that makes me feel a little better.
So don't worry too much about it. Just practice and you'll get more comfortable over time.
So we've covered a lot of ground today. We talked about verbs, conversational connectors, nouns, adjectives, and now phrasal verbs. It's pretty amazing how much we can learn from just 21 words.
It really is. I think it just goes to show the power of language.
Yeah.
And how these simple building blocks can be used to express so many different things.
So what's the main takeaway you hope listeners will, walk away with from this deep dive?
I think the most important thing to remember is that fluency isn't about memorizing a huge vocabulary or mastering all the grammar rules. It's about understanding the basic principles of how language works, and then using those principles to communicate effectively.
So it's not about quantity, it's about quality.
Exactly. By focusing on these 21 words, you're not just learning vocabulary, you're gaining a deeper understanding of how English works.
I love that.
Yeah.
So is there anything you'd like to challenge our listeners to do after this deep dive?
I would challenge them to really pay attention to how these 21 words are being used all around them. Listen to conversations, read books and articles, and see if you can notice how these words are like the threads that hold everything together.
I like that. It's like a treasure hunt.
It is.
And the more you find, the better you'll become at understanding and speaking the language.
Exactly.
Well, this has been such an eye-opening deep dive for me. I feel like I've learned so much.
Me too.
And I definitely have a new appreciation for these words that we use every day. So thank you so much for joining me on this journey. And thanks to all of you for listening. We'll see you next time for another deep dive. All right, so you're looking to really master English quickly and effectively.
Right.
So let's dive into this.
Okay.
The secret sauce revealed in your sources.
Sure.
It's mastering the 4 key language skills. Listening, speaking, reading, and writing.
Okay.
We'll unpack each of those skills.
Yeah.
Sprinkle in some practical tips.
Right.
Some relatable examples, and we'll basically create your roadmap to fluency.
It's interesting because those 4 skills aren't just for English.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're the foundation of any language.
Interesting.
You soak up language through listening, you communicate through speaking, you explore the world through reading, and express yourself through writing.
Okay.
So it's really the foundation of communication.
Gotcha. So listening.
Yeah.
It's the base. It's the way we naturally absorb language, just like babies do.
Right.
Before they can even utter a word.
Yeah.
Immersing yourself is key.
Yeah.
But there's a bit more to it than that, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Think about how parents instinctively talk to their kids.
Oh, okay.
Simpler words, they slow down.
Right.
They emphasize key sounds.
Yeah.
Well, that same principle applies to learning any language.
Interesting.
Peppa Pig.
Peppa Pig.
Yeah, with its clear pronunciation and simple storylines,
Okay.
is a surprisingly effective tool for tuning your ears to the rhythm and sounds of English.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I see how that simplified input can really help with picking up the basics.
Right.
But what about those of us who maybe aren't into cartoons?
Yeah.
How do we immerse ourselves effectively?
Subtitles are your secret weapon.
Ooh.
Start with your favorite shows.
Okay.
Friends, Stranger Things,
Yeah.
anything that you enjoy.
Gotcha.
Watching with English subtitles lets you read and listen simultaneously,
Right.
reinforcing your comprehension.
Okay.
Then try watching the same scene without subtitles to test yourself.
So it's like training wheels for your ears.
Precisely.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and it ties into the idea of active listening,
Oh, okay.
which goes beyond just passively hearing the words.
Okay.
You're mimicking pronunciation,
Right.
paying attention to tone,
Yeah.
and truly engaging with the nuances of spoken English.
Active listening. I like that.
Yeah.
It feels a lot more deliberate and purposeful than just having the TV on in the background.
Right.
Okay, so we've got listening down.
Uh-huh.
But
Yeah.
speaking,
Yeah,
that's often the trickiest part, right?
absolutely.
It's easy to feel self-conscious about making mistakes.
One technique that can help you overcome that fear and build confidence is shadowing.
Shadowing.
You listen to a sentence and you repeat it immediately, mimicking the speaker's tone and rhythm.
Oh, okay.
Want to try it?
Yeah.
Repeat after me.
Okay.
I'd like a cup of coffee, please.
I'd like a cup of coffee, please.
Hey, it's already making you think about your pronunciation more.
It is.
Yeah.
I like that.
And don't underestimate the power of everyday conversations,
Oh.
even if it's just talking to yourself.
Interesting.
Describe what you're doing as you go about your day.
Right.
I'm cooking dinner. I'm walking the dog.
Yeah.
Every little bit helps.
So it's about finding those little opportunities to practice speaking,
Precisely.
even if it feels a bit silly at first.
Exactly. And when it comes to speaking,
Yeah.
remember that learning sentence patterns
Okay.
is more effective than memorizing isolated words.
Interesting.
Let's revisit that coffee example.
All right.
Once you've got, I'd like a cup of coffee down,
Mm-hmm.
you can swap coffee for tea,
Right.
water,
Uh-huh.
a slice of cake.
Yeah.
Suddenly you've unlocked a flexible phrase for a variety of situations.
Okay, that's a really helpful way to think about it.
Yeah.
Instead of memorizing a whole dictionary,
Right.
you're learning the building blocks of sentences
Mm-hmm.
and how to adapt them.
Exactly.
So we've covered listening and speaking.
Yeah.
What about reading?
Reading is like a treasure trove for expanding your vocabulary, absorbing grammar naturally, and simply enjoying the learning process.
But I imagine it can be a bit overwhelming.
Ah.
Where do you even start?
It doesn't have to be intimidating.
Yeah.
Start with materials you genuinely enjoy.
Yeah.
Maybe news headlines,
Uh-huh.
a favorite blog,
Yeah.
even social media posts.
Okay.
The key is to find content that keeps you engaged
Right.
and coming back for more.
So instead of forcing myself to read classic literature that I don't understand,
Right.
I could start with something more my speed.
Exactly. And here's a tip.
Okay.
Don't get bogged down by every unfamiliar word.
Right.
Use context clues to guess the meaning.
Oh,
So
interesting.
for example,
Okay.
the restaurant was crowded,
Yeah.
so we decided to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you don't know crowded, you can infer it means something uncomfortable
Oh, okay.
or undesirable because they left.
Right. That's a great point. I do that all the time when I'm reading in my native language.
Mhm.
Why not apply it to English as well?
Precisely, it's about activating those critical thinking skills and becoming an active reader,
Right.
not just passively skimming the words. You can also make reading more interactive by underlining new words, writing them down, and even creating your own sentences with them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it's about turning reading into an active learning experience
Exactly.
rather than just passively absorbing information.
Yeah.
It's listening, speaking, and reading covered. What about writing?
Yeah.
I feel like that's the one a lot of people struggle with.
Writing is a fantastic way to organize your thoughts,
Okay.
refine your grammar,
Right.
and flex those creative muscles in English.
Yeah.
And the best part is you can start small.
Okay.
Think about writing simple sentences about your daily routine.
All right.
I wake up at 7 a.m.
Right.
I eat breakfast at 8 a.m.
Yeah.
You know, just those very basic things.
So it's not about writing the next great novel.
Exactly.
It's about getting comfortable expressing yourself in written English.
Precisely. And journaling in English is a great low-pressure practice.
Oh,
It's a private space to experiment with the language without fear of judgment.
right.
You can also leverage language exchange apps
Oh, yeah.
to get feedback from native speakers and learn from your mistakes.
I like that.
Yeah.
It's all about embracing those mistakes as opportunities to learn.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered the 4 skills:
Uh-huh.
listening, speaking, reading, and writing.
Right.
They seem pretty interconnected, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Think of it like a web with each skill supporting and reinforcing the others.
Right.
When you listen, you're not just absorbing sounds.
Right.
You're also picking up on grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation.
Yeah.
When you speak, you're putting all of that knowledge into practice. And when you read,
Yeah.
you're expanding your vocabulary, seeing how grammar works in different contexts, which then feeds into your writing.
It's just like this amazing cycle
It is.
of learning and reinforcement.
Absolutely.
The more you practice each skill, the stronger that web becomes.
Yeah.
Leading to greater fluency overall.
Right.
But how do we make sure we're actually practicing effectively?
That's where motivation and goal setting come in.
Okay, yeah.
Right.
Motivation and goal setting.
We'll dive into those crucial aspects in the next part of our deep dive.
Awesome. I'm excited to learn more about that.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay. You know, it's fascinating how we often box in language learning as this rigid,
Right.
classroom-only activity.
Yeah.
But in reality, it's happening around us all the time.
That's so true. When you start seeing everyday moments
Yeah.
as learning opportunities,
Right.
it really does open up a whole new world.
Think about it. Every time you watch a movie,
Yeah.
listen to music, or even just glance at a menu,
Right.
you're engaging with English in some way.
It's like this constant stream of input, subtly shaping your understanding of the language.
And it doesn't have to be passive.
Okay.
You can turn those everyday encounters into active learning experiences.
Now that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
How do we make that happen?
Let's say you're watching a movie. Instead of just following the plot, pay attention to how the characters use certain phrases,
Right.
the tone they convey,
Yeah.
the rhythm of their speech.
So I'm not just watching for entertainment.
Right.
I'm actively analyzing how the language is being used.
Precisely. And you can apply the same principle to music.
Oh, okay.
Listen to the lyrics,
Yeah.
try to sing along, notice how the words are pronounced and how they flow together.
It's like training your ear
Exactly.
to pick up on those subtle nuances that make a language come alive.
Fluency isn't just about knowing grammar rules
Right.
or having a massive vocabulary. It's about using the language naturally and effortlessly like a native speaker,
Right. It's about feeling comfortable and confident.
expressing yourself no matter the situation.
And the more you expose yourself to the language
Yeah.
in these authentic contexts,
Right.
the more comfortable you'll become.
Okay. We've talked a lot about the individual skills, listening, speaking, reading, writing.
Right.
But how do they all work together to create that fluency we're aiming for?
That's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Think of it like a web,
Right?
with each skill interconnected and reinforcing the others.
So when I'm listening to English,
Yeah.
I'm not just absorbing sounds.
Right.
I'm also picking up on grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation.
Exactly. And when you speak, you're putting all that knowledge into practice,
Right.
solidifying it in your mind.
And reading expands my vocabulary.
Yes.
Showing me how grammar is used in different contexts.
Which in turn informs your writing
Oh, okay.
as you begin to use those new words and structures in your own work.
It's a beautiful cycle
Absolutely.
of learning and reinforcement. And the more you engage in each of these skills,
Yeah.
the stronger those connections become, leading to greater fluency and overall mastery of the language.
It's like working out a muscle,
Yeah,
making it stronger and more resilient with each exercise.
precisely. And just like with any workout, consistency is key.
Okay.
Even dedicating a few minutes each day to each skill can make a huge difference over time.
So don't get discouraged if you don't see results overnight.
Right.
Language learning is a marathon, not a sprint.
And the journey itself is just as important as the destination.
I like that.
Enjoy the process.
Yeah.
Embrace the challenges and celebrate those small victories along the way. After all, there's something incredibly rewarding
Yeah.
about being able to communicate in another language.
It's true. Connecting with people from different cultures.
Absolutely.
Expanding your horizons. Those are amazing benefits.
It opens up a whole world of possibilities,
Yeah.
both personally and professionally.
And who knows, maybe one day our listener will be hosting their own podcast in English.
That would be a testament to the power of consistent practice
Right.
and a positive mindset.
Okay, so we've covered the fundamentals of the 4 skills,
Yeah,
the importance of everyday learning, and the power of consistency.
right.
But there's one crucial piece we haven't touched on yet.
And that is,
Motivation.
yes.
The fuel that keeps us going,
Uh-huh.
especially when things get tough.
Right.
And of course, setting realistic goals
Yeah.
so we don't get overwhelmed.
Ah, yes. Motivation and goal setting, the compass and map for our language learning journey.
I like that.
We'll dive into those critical aspects after a quick break. Stay tuned.
So we're back, ready to unpack the power of motivation
Yeah.
and goal setting in your English learning journey.
Right.
You know, we've all hit those walls
Yeah.
where the motivation takes a nosedive.
For sure.
How do we keep the fire burning?
What's fascinating here is that motivation isn't this
Okay.
magical thing that appears. It's something you actively cultivate and nurture.
Right.
It all starts with connecting to your why.
Your why.
Yeah.
Okay. So dig deep. Why are you learning English?
Right.
What doors will it open?
Yeah.
Is it to travel the world?
Mm-hmm.
Connect with new people?
Mm-hmm.
Boost your career?
Yeah.
Or simply enjoy those books and movies in their original form?
Having a strong why is like your secret weapon.
Oh, okay.
When doubt or frustration creep in,
Right.
it's easy to get caught up in the daily grind of studying
Yeah.
and lose sight of the bigger picture.
So it's like having a North Star
Exactly.
guiding you even when the path gets a bit rocky.
Yeah.
Speaking of navigating that path, how about setting goals?
Right.
It's tempting to aim for fluency in a few months,
Yeah.
but isn't that setting yourself up for a crash landing?
Absolutely. Setting smaller, achievable goals
Okay.
is key to maintaining momentum
Right.
and celebrating those wins along the way.
Yeah.
Instead of, I want to be fluent in 6 months,
Okay.
break it down. Maybe it's, I want to comfortably chat about my hobbies, or I want to read a short story without a dictionary.
Right. So those smaller victories fuel the motivation to keep going.
Exactly.
And it makes the whole process less intimidating.
For sure.
But even with smaller goals,
Yeah.
we need to be honest about our time.
Exactly. How much time can you realistically dedicate to learning each week?
Right.
Be specific. Create a schedule that works for you and stick to it.
Okay.
Consistency trumps intensity when it comes to language learning.
So 30 minutes a day is better than cramming for 3 hours once a week.
Exactly.
It's like those little deposits in a savings account.
Right.
They add up over time.
That's a great analogy.
Thanks.
It's fascinating how much progress you can make
Yeah.
with consistent effort, even if it's just a little bit each day.
Right.
And don't forget to celebrate those milestones.
Oh, okay.
Acknowledge your progress. Reward yourself.
Now,
Let those successes fuel your motivation.
it's like giving yourself a little pat on the back and saying, hey, I'm doing this.
Exactly.
I'm moving forward.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, it's important to remember that the journey of learning English is just as important as the destination.
Right.
Have fun with it.
Couldn't agree more. So
Okay.
there you have it.
Okay.
We've explored the 4 essential skills, the power of finding those everyday learning opportunities,
Right.
and the vital roles of motivation and goal setting.
Yeah.
You've now got the tools,
Okay.
the insights and inspiration to unlock your full language potential.
Awesome.
It's time to define your why, set those realistic goals, and get to work.
So to wrap things up, for
Yeah.
anyone listening who wants to master English quickly and effectively, remember it all comes down to mastering those 4 key skills:
Right.
listening, speaking, reading, and writing.
Yeah.
And as we've learned today, the best way to tackle these skills is to find a method that works for you. Stay motivated by connecting to your personal why. And don't forget to celebrate those small wins along the way.
Yeah, and remember, consistency is key.
Right.
Keep practicing, keep learning,
Absolutely.
and most importantly, have fun with it.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of English language learning.
It was my pleasure.
We'll catch you next time.
Sounds good.
Welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be tackling something you use every day, probably without even thinking about it too much.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Numbers and time.
Okay, interesting. And how are we diving into that?
Well, our roadmap for this deep dive is a 100-minute lesson plan.
100 minutes. That's pretty intense.
Well, don't worry. We're giving you the express tour.
Okay, that makes me feel better.
I mean, you might be thinking, I already know numbers. I know how to tell time. But, think about it this way. This deep dive is about the structure of how we learn these concepts.
Ooh, okay. I like that.
Like whether you're teaching these concepts to somebody else, or maybe you're learning a new language, or maybe you're just fascinated by those everyday things that we kind of take for granted.
Yeah, it's funny how the most basic things can actually be pretty complex when you really look at them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what I found really interesting about this lesson plan that we're looking at is how systematic it is.
Oh, interesting.
Like it starts with the most basic building blocks and then methodically adds complexity as it goes.
So it shows how our brains build up to a really sophisticated understanding, but from a simple starting point.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty cool. And it jumps right in with numbers. Okay, so 1, 2, 3.
Well, it actually starts with counting 1 to 20 first.
Okay, that does seem pretty basic.
Yeah. But does it really? I mean, I remember when I was a kid, getting the number order right was a big deal. Why does 7 come after 6?
It's funny because when you think about it, that decimal system that we use every day, it really relies on understanding those first 10 digits, right? And then you build from there. And even across languages, a lot of languages have similar structures for those early numbers.
Oh, that's interesting.
So it's kind of a common starting point for communication no matter where you are in the world.
So it's sort of like a universal language in a way.
In a way, yeah. Like a Rosetta Stone for numbers.
I like that. But then English gets tricky, right? 13 versus 30.
Ugh. Don't even get me started. I still mix those up sometimes.
I know. It's why does English have to be so complicated sometimes?
Well, and the lesson plan actually highlights those pronunciation pitfalls early on.
Ooh, that's sorry.
Right from the beginning. It's okay, watch out for these. So after you get 1 to 20 down, then it moves on to how do you build bigger numbers? All the way up to 99.
And that's where understanding place value becomes really, really important for
Place value.
Yeah, 21, 32, 45. It's all about seeing the pattern, how the tens and the ones work together.
Oh, okay. So it's you're cracking a code.
Exactly. It's like a number code.
So we've cracked the code up to 99.
We're on a roll.
But what about those giant numbers? Does it cover those too?
It does. So this lesson plan goes all the way up to 10,000.
Whoa.
Yeah. And it really emphasizes that logic of thousands, hundreds, tens, and ones.
Okay, so it's still building on that same foundation, even when you get to those really big numbers.
Exactly. It's all connected. And it even touches on Roman numerals, which I think is really fascinating.
Roman numerals, like IVX.
Yeah, because it shows how differently, ancient civilizations approached numbers.
Oh, that's cool. It's a totally different way of thinking about it.
Right. It's a whole other number system.
Yeah.
But let's get real for a second.
Yep.
How does this lesson plan actually help someone, use numbers in everyday life?
That's a good question. It's great to know the theory, but how do you actually put it into practice?
Well, that's where it gets really practical. The lesson plan includes things like phone numbers, asking someone's age, talking about money.
Oh, okay. So real world scenarios.
Exactly. Using phrases you'd actually encounter in daily conversations.
So it's kind of like a cheat sheet for real life conversations.
Exactly. And there's even a suggestion for a game of number bingo.
Bingo, with numbers instead of letters.
Yeah. I mean, I love bingo, but do you think it actually helps with numbers? Or is it just a fun activity?
Oh, I think games are fantastic for learning, especially for kids.
Oh, yeah.
Bingo can really help reinforce number recognition, the order of numbers.
And it's fun, so that's a bonus.
Exactly. Plus, a little friendly competition never hurt anyone.
Okay, so we've conquered the world of numbers.
At least up to 10,000.
But what about time? How does this lesson plan tackle that?
Time is next, and the lesson plan starts by addressing the two main ways we see time: analog and digital clocks.
Yeah, those are the two biggies.
Right, and making sure you're comfortable with both is really key because you encounter both in the real world.
It's funny, I'm so used to digital clocks now that I almost forget how to read an analog clock sometimes.
I know, right? It's like a lost art.
But the lesson plan uses those classic phrases for telling time. O'clock, quarter past, quarter to. But are those really universal? Do people in other countries say it the same way? That's a great question, and it actually brings up the cultural aspect of time telling.
Interesting.
Those phrases are pretty common in a lot of English-speaking regions, but other cultures might have totally different ways of expressing those fractions of an hour.
So even something as basic as quarter past isn't so straightforward.
Yeah, exactly. It really depends on where you are in the world and what language you're speaking.
Wow, I never thought about that before. So this lesson plan is making me realize there's a lot more to numbers and time than I initially thought.
It's like peeling back the layers of an onion.
And the lesson plan also really emphasizes using a real clock to practice telling time.
Oh yeah, that visual element is so important, especially if you're someone who learns best by seeing things.
So you can actually see the hands moving as you're saying the phrases.
Right. It helps solidify that connection between the abstract idea of time and its physical representation.
So it's like you're making time tangible.
Exactly. You can actually see it happening.
That's pretty cool. And what I really appreciate about this lesson plan is how specific it is about the actual phrases you would use for asking and telling time.
Oh, yeah, it gives you the words.
Yeah, it's not just about understanding what time it is, it's about how to actually say it in conversation.
So it's like giving you the script for those everyday interactions.
Yeah, exactly. And that could be super helpful for someone learning English or even just someone who gets tongue-tied asking for the time.
I know, right? It can be surprisingly tricky.
It's like suddenly you forget how to say the simplest things.
Exactly. And this lesson plan, it just takes away all that guesswork and helps you build confidence.
And just like with the number section, it also encourages role-playing to practice those time-telling skills.
Oh, that's great. So you're not just learning the words, you're actually using them.
It's like putting it all into action.
Exactly. Learning by doing.
So where does this deep dive go from here? We've covered numbers. We've tackled telling time. What's next?
Well, now it gets personal.
Ooh,
The lesson plan shifts its focus to how we use numbers and time in our own daily lives.
Okay, now that's something I can relate to. I mean, everyone has a routine, right?
Exactly. And that's where we'll pick up in part 2 of our deep dive.
Can't wait.
Welcome back to the deep dive.
Glad to be back. So last time we were talking about how this lesson plan takes a really personal turn.
Yeah, it starts to focus on how we actually use numbers and time in our day-to-day life.
Like our routines.
Exactly. Waking up, going to work, bedtime, those everyday things.
Like they were reading my diary or something.
Right. But it's so smart how they incorporate the numbers and time telling we learned in the first part. It's not just about the concepts anymore. It's about applying them.
Oh, so they actually give you ways to practice.
Yeah, they actually suggest students write out their daily routines.
Oh, interesting. So instead of just saying, I wake up at 7, you'd write.
I wake up at 7 o'clock, or I wake up at 7:15. Using those specific phrases.
Right, right. So it reinforces what you've learned, but it's also personalized.
Exactly. And it made me think, we talk about routines all the time, but do we ever really stop and analyze them?
Analyze them. How do you mean?
Well, how much of our day is really dictated by the clock versus how much is actually our own choice?
That's a good question. Never really thought about it that way.
But the lesson plan doesn't just stop at routines, does it?
Nope. It goes beyond those basic routines and gets into things like appointments and transportation schedules.
Oh, okay. Stuff that can get a little tricky if you're not really comfortable with numbers and time.
Right. Like imagine trying to catch a bus or make a doctor's appointment if you can't clearly communicate what time you need to be there.
Oh, yeah. That's when it stops being theoretical and starts being real life stress.
Exactly. And that's why this lesson plan is so helpful. It gives you those tools to feel confident and in control, even in situations where you might feel a little anxious.
Makes sense. But how do you actually know if someone's really grasped all this? Is there a test? Of course. There's another quiz, and this time it mixes numbers and time together.
Ooh, a combo quiz. That sounds like a good challenge. Though, sometimes I think I learn more from making up the questions than actually answering them.
Oh, I totally agree. When you have to come up with the questions, you have to think about the material in a whole different way.
Yeah, you have to anticipate what someone else might need to know, and that really helps you understand it better yourself.
So maybe we should encourage our listener to try making their own quizzes about numbers and time.
Ooh, I like that. A deep dive challenge for our listeners. But before we get too carried away with quiz making, let's step back for a second.
Okay.
What have we actually learned from this deep dive into the lesson plan so far?
Well, I think it shows that even with something as basic as numbers and time, there's real method to learning them.
Like a step-by-step process.
Yeah.
Right.
You start with the building blocks, and then you layer on complexity, always making sure to connect back to how you'd actually use this stuff in real life.
It's like a reminder that learning should be both structured and meaningful.
Exactly. And I think it's interesting how interconnected everything is. We started with numbers, then time, then routines, and now these more complex scenarios.
It's like it all builds on itself.
Right. It's not just separate topics, it's all woven together.
And that's where we'll pick up in the final part of our deep dive.
We'll see how this lesson plan really pushes learners to become fluent and confident with numbers and time in any situation.
And we're back for the final part of our deep dive into numbers and time. It's amazing how much ground we've covered, right?
It really is. We started with something as simple as counting to 20, and now look at us.
It's all thanks to this amazing lesson plan. The last part, we were talking about how it gets into these more like real-life situations.
Yeah, like going to appointments, figuring out travel schedules, the stuff that can be kind of stressful if you're not totally comfortable with the language.
Exactly. And it's here, in this final stretch, that the lesson plan really seems to emphasize, like, conversational fluency.
Oh, for sure. It's like, okay, you've got the basics. Now let's make sure you can actually use them in real life.
So you're not just understanding numbers and time, you're actually able to use them without even thinking about it.
Right, like it becomes second nature.
So it's like taking all those building blocks that we've been working with and turning them into a fully functional, communication system.
I like that, a communication system. It's about bridging that gap between what you know in your head and what you can actually do out in the world.
Exactly. And one of the ways this lesson plan does that is through a final quiz. We talked about quizzes before, and I know you're a big fan of making your own quizzes.
Oh yeah, always a good challenge.
But what's special about this final quiz in the lesson plan?
Well, it's designed to be more challenging than the previous ones. It brings together numbers and time in these more complex scenarios.
So it's not just like, what time is it?
No, it's more like, okay, if the train leaves at 4:15 and the journey takes 35 minutes, what time will you arrive? Stuff like that.
Ooh. Okay, that does sound a bit trickier.
It really makes you think, right? You have to do some calculations, put different pieces of information together.
And be able to explain your answer clearly.
Exactly. It's impressive considering this lesson plan started with basic counting.
It really is. But aside from quizzes, are there other ways the lesson plan encourages this real-world fluency?
Definitely. One of the last activities is a conversation practice where learners pair up and act out different scenarios.
Oh, fun.
It's like the grand finale. It brings everything together. Numbers, time, all the vocabulary they've learned.
Like they're finally performing on stage after weeks of rehearsals.
Exactly. And I bet it can be a bit nerve-wracking, putting yourself out there.
And also exciting, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
It's a safe space to make mistakes and learn from them. And the more you practice, the more natural it all becomes.
So it's really about going beyond just knowing the material. It's about developing those communication skills.
For sure. It's about giving learners the confidence to navigate everyday situations.
This has been such a fascinating deep dive.
I agree.
We've seen how a well-structured lesson plan can take you from basic counting all the way to, feeling empowered to use numbers and time in your everyday life.
And it's a great reminder that learning should be both fun and effective. I mean, who knew a deep dive into a 100-minute lesson plan could be so interesting?
So to all our listeners out there, keep diving deep, keep exploring, and keep challenging yourselves to learn new things. Until next time.